Hello, good evening, and welcome to this Friends at Home event. My name is Serena Hom, and I'm a proud board member of the Friends of the Alameda Free Library. This evening, we are delighted to have Alameda author Joyce Mercado discussing her journey to becoming a local climate leader in her new book, Save the Planet in Your Spare Time, the Climate Protection Handbook for the Busy Person, and also moderator Ruth Abbey, the leader of the steering committee for community action for a sustainable Alameda for the past several years. Ruth has a passion for striving for zero waste and is called upon by the City of Alameda for her expertise on all things climate protection related. Before we begin, you should know that this is a live webinar and it will be recorded. Your audio and video are turned off. Please use the chat to introduce yourself and to ask questions. Please be respectful in the chat. The Friends of the Alameda Free Library is a nonprofit organization, and our mission is to raise funds and advocate for the success of the Alameda Free Library. We provide these events for free and ask that you please consider a donation to the Friends. A donation link will be added to the chat near the end of this program. Now, onto our program. I'm happy to hand over the spotlight to Ruth, who will be leading the discussion tonight with author Joyce Mercado. Welcome, Ruth and Joyce.
Yes, hello, good evening, everyone. I'm Ruth Abbey, and I have the pleasure of introducing tonight the author of the book we're discussing, Joyce Mercado. Joyce has been a climate activist for over 20 years. I've known her through Community Action for a Sustainable Alameda, which was formed in 2008 to help the city of Alameda implement its climate action plan. And Joyce has been one of our most effective communicators on climate, the impending climate crisis, and what we can all do to avert that crisis. And she has written this book, which is truly amazing, about how we all can do something to support reducing greenhouse gas emissions and helping us to save the planet. As you know, we all here are in Alameda, and in some ways, Alameda has an existential crisis. We are an island in the San Francisco Bay. Because Joyce and I and Casa and others involved in the community have been working closely with the city of Alameda, the city has been doing great things to both implement climate action initiatives, some of which have been identified by Joyce, and also to implement mitigation strategies to protect us from the impacts of sea level rise and groundwater rise. But we're here tonight to talk about Joyce and Joyce's book, which is Save the Planet in Your Spare Time, Climate Protection Handbook for the Busy Person. So I'd like to introduce Joyce, and we will have a period of questions where I get to ask the questions first, and then we'll open it up to the audience, and you'll be able to ask Joyce questions as well. So let's go ahead and bring Joyce up on the stage. Hi, Joyce.
Hello, everyone.
Excellent. Well, this is going to be fun. So, Joyce, yay. Can you tell us a little bit about why you decided to write this book?
Well, I had been going about minding my own business, doing my regular climate activism work in Alameda. And then last year, I read a report by the Intergovernmental Panel for Climate Change, which is a group of hundreds of scientists that study climate change and then make policy recommendations to governments around the world. And this report, annual report, was especially grim. It described that to limit global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius and avert the worst of climate change impacts, we had to get really serious really fast. And that meant cutting emissions in half by 2030, which is not that far from now, and then getting to zero by 2050. So I thought, well, I've got to do more. And I had been thinking globally and acting locally, but I thought, what can I do to think globally and act globally? So I thought, why don't I write a book about what I've been doing in Alameda to share with others the lessons I've learned and how I've gone about promoting climate protection in Alameda so that others could learn from my experience and then take on the challenge themselves. So that's why I thought, let's get down and write a book. I had to give myself a little pep talk because I've never done anything like this before. But I thought, well, other people have done it, and you can do hard things, Joyce, so just dive in. And I did. And it didn't take that long to write. So, and then I just published it in May.
Fantastic. Well, Joyce, I know a lot about how you got involved and what all you've been doing. But can you tell us, since you've been doing this for a lot of years, how did you first start? What first inspired you to get going and working locally here in Alameda on climate issues?
Well, being the nerd that I am, it was a chart. And it was I was reading a series of articles in a National Geographic magazine 20 years ago. And it had this chart, which I will show you now, that really alarmed me. So there's the chart. And it shows the correlation between the temperature of the Earth in white and the concentration of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere in blue. And you can see it's a pretty strong correlation. But then what really is alarming is where we are now. Whoops, let's see. This didn't work for me. The concentration of carbon dioxide now goes up off the chart. So when I saw the concentration go up off of the chart, that really was my wake-up call. And I thought, well, I've got to do more than just change a few light bulbs. I've got to get serious here and see what I can do to solve this crisis. So I started by concentrating on my own carbon footprint. I figured I'd start with myself. And first thing I did was haul the bike out of the garage and start biking for errands around town. And then I put baskets on it and panniers in the back and bungee cords. And then I could do bicycling for grocery shopping or running errands where you had to pick up a bunch of stuff. And then I put lights on it so I could ride at night. And that way, between that and then the improvements I was making in my gas mileage by doing a few items like making sure I had proper air pressure in the tires, I changed from filling up my tank once every week or two to every 6 weeks. So that was a big improvement. And then I did other things to reduce my carbon footprint.
That's awesome.
That's
how you got going.
Yeah, that's how I got going.
What were some of the first things that you did to, to expand your influence in the community?
Yeah, so as I was doing these things, I was thinking, I'm just one person. What can I do to help other people? And one thing that came to mind was that when I spoke to people, most people were willing to do more to reduce their carbon footprints, but they didn't know what else to do besides change light bulbs or put solar panels on their roof. So I came up with a list of 70 items of things that people can do to reduce their carbon footprint and protect the climate. And then also compiled a list of resources to help you do the things on the checklist and published that on the CASA website and started handing it out at community events and at my presentations and Earth Day and Farmers Market and lots of different places to distribute it. So I've distributed thousands of these checklists at this point in Alameda. And so that was one of the major things that I did. And I think that our nice moderators are going to put the checklist link in the chat for you at some point so you can get a copy of the checklist. But it looks like this. So it has lots of things on it that you can do, and you can check things off as you go, and resources to help you do the things on the checklist. So that was one major thing that I did. But as I was going through and doing things to reduce my own carbon footprint, the other thing that I did in combination with reducing my own carbon footprint was started to write letters to the editor So I wrote letters to the editor about each change that I was making. So I wrote, the first letter to the editor I wrote was about my bicycle and getting that out and the benefits of bicycling and how easy and fun it is, and and so on. And then I wrote about switching to a plant-based diet and all sorts of different things that I was doing. I'd write a letter to the editor and they would publish every one of them. I was pleasantly surprised. And then this is a great way to reach thousands of people with just about an hour's worth of work to write a little letter to the editor. But people read letters to the editor. So it's a great way to reach Alamedans or wherever you're from. Writing letters to the editor is a very powerful tool. Then I wrote so many letters to the editor and that the editor offered me a column of my own. So that's how I got my column.
That's fantastic. And I know that you've written for all of our local outlets, the Journal, the Sun, the Post. So tell us a little bit about how, how you got those columns and what kind of subjects you've written about over the years.
Yeah, so the first one I got was with the Sun. They was the one that offered me the job. But then when they went out of business, I reached out to the Alameda Post and sent them a couple of samples of my work, and they accepted me as a columnist. And I've written columns about, and I have some examples in the book, as well as examples of letters to the editor, so you can get some ideas. But I wrote about plant-based diet, reducing food waste, the benefits of bicycling, a whole article on transportation, one on electrification, induction stoves, so a variety of things. But the focus tends to be on things you can do, constructive things you can do to protect the climate. So people leave with my columns with some action. So that's the idea behind the column.
That's wonderful. And you did all this while you were still working full time, raising your two kids. But eventually you did retire.
I did.
And tell us a little bit about what you did once you retired and became even more full-time climate activist.
Well, yeah, I wanted to mention the column only takes about an hour or two a month, so it's not that big of a commitment. But then once I retired and I had more time, I went to the Al Gore Climate Reality Project training, where they train people from all different backgrounds to give climate protection talks about a little bit about the science of climate change, the fact that temperatures are increasing, the impacts of climate change, and the solutions we have available. And then I'd always close by giving out my checklist, so people had constructive action to take. And so I started giving these presentations. First one I gave was to a bunch of friends at my home to practice, but then that worked out well because one of my friends was president of one of the business associations in town, so she had me do one for the business association. And then I kept reaching out to different friends' houses and doing presentations, and in each presentation, I'd get a few more presentations, and then it kept working out from there. And I reached out to like the League of Women Voters and Kiwanis and Rotary and all sorts of different community groups to give presentations. I even gave one at a winery, which was a lot of fun.
I know that in our work with CASA, you also have developed a checklist for organizations. And a checklist for that goes beyond Alameda, that's for the entire U.S.
Yes.
Can you tell me a little bit about the development of those checklists as well? And those are all included on our website as well.
Yes, the community organization one I put together because I thought that was another avenue of outreach for people, is if I can get community organizations leading by example by protecting the climate, then that would be a good thing. So I gave them examples of things that they can do to protect the climate themselves within their organizations. And so that was the community organization one. And then the US one I put together because I was asked to speak a few times to people that are, in a different state. And so I put that one together without the resources, but just made it a little more generic. Like I didn't say blue bin, I said recycling bin, so that because they're all different colors of bins depending where you are in the US. So I just modified it for it could be used anywhere in the US, so that if you have a friend or family member in another state, you can send them that checklist.
And one type of organization that we've been successful at CASA in reaching out to has been the faith organizations in town. Alameda has, I think, over 100, churches, mosques, synagogues, temples, many of which I think have reached out to you, Joyce, and you've been able to give presentations, and then some of which who have come to workshops that CASA and the city have hosted, where you've been able to give a presentation.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about the advantages of working with a faith organization?
Well, because they have a lot of reach. If you're dealing with a faith organization, first off, they care about the planet because it's their creator's creation. And so they are automatically in line with what I'm trying to do. And then they have a big reach with a whole constituency that attends their faith-based organization, their house of worship. So it's a great way to reach a lot of people that care about the environment.
That's awesome. So they're greening their house of worship and then helping their congregations to green their own spaces as well. So
yeah, exactly.
Great way of leveraging. And, I think the thing about your work, Joyce, is that it's sort of never ending. I mean, once you've given a presentation to one group at one point, then, new people come in all the time, new people come into Alameda, new organizations form. So it's kind of a perpetual need out there to do your outreach.
Yes, yes, indeed. I
know
a dull moment.
And I know that you've had leadership responsibilities in other organizations in Alameda. Can you tell us a little bit about them as well and how you've incorporated your climate outreach into their work?
Okay, well, yes, I was president of Rotary and now I'm president-elect of Rotary. I'm skipping a year of leadership. And I got Rotary involved in a few ways. I organized tree plantings. And this wasn't that much work to do. It was a little organization, but I worked with 100,000 Trees for Humanity to source the trees at cost for us, and also to train our Rotarian volunteers on how to properly plant a tree. And then I reached out to the Rec and Parks Department to see what parks needed trees that would have the irrigation that the trees need. And then set a date, and we all showed up. The Park and Rec, 100,000 Trees for Humanity, and my group of Rotarians, and we planted trees. We've done this in several parks in town, and we started doing it once a year, and everyone had so much fun that time. Now we're doing it twice a year. So that's one thing I did. And the other thing I did was to get some environmentally minded speakers to come in, like Danielle Mueller. Sorry, I got spaced a second there. Diane Mueller came and presented about the sustainability manager and resiliency manager of Alameda, presented to our group, as well as a plant-based diet expert presented as well about the benefits of moving to a plant-based diet for the environment, as well as other benefits. So that's how I've been working with Rotary.
And I know you've also had a leadership position with Bike Walk Alameda, and here in Alameda, because we have 100% clean power through Alameda Municipal Power, we're in good shape on the electricity front, but our
Yes.
largest emission is transportation. You want to tell us
Yes.
a little bit about your work in that arena?
Well, in transportation, that was one of the first things I did too, after I realized the climate crisis was in this bad a shape, was I found out that transportation was 70% of our emissions. I went straight to Bike Walk Alameda and volunteered. So I started volunteering by doing various things for Bike Walk Alameda. And then I did so much, they said, why don't you just join the board? So I joined the board and served on the board for quite some time. And then later on, I became the program administrator for Bike Walk Alameda. But they have since got absorbed by the East Bay Bicycle Coalition. So I didn't need to serve on them as a programs administrator anymore. But I'm proud of the work I did with Bike Walk Alameda, because we've got a lot more bicycle lanes in town because of Bike Walk Alameda. And one thing that I learned to do really from Bike Walk Alameda was to speak up at city council meetings. So they would, whenever there was a bike lane coming up, they'd let their membership know, and I would show up to city council and speak. And the first time I did this, it was a little nerve-wracking. But what I did is just wrote out what I was going to say. I practiced it before I went there and measured the time so I wouldn't get cut off. And I just got up there and read it, and it worked. So, yeah.
That's great. Well, and since you're on to the idea that even a regular person out there can make a big difference by showing up and doing things, can you tell me a little bit about some of government policy opportunities for climate and what you've observed? What government policy changes can help us with our climate crisis?
Yeah, so it occurred to me that reducing our individual climate footprints, carbon footprints, is one part of the solution. But we also need to get government policy recommendations implemented. Government policy is implemented, like rebates for electric vehicles and other incentives for solar and wind and those types of things. And so there's really two aspects to this, getting policy recommendations implemented. One is getting the right politicians elected for office. So that's why it's important to research your candidates to see which ones are going to be the ones that support climate change initiatives up and down the ballot. So I still haven't decided for city council who I'm going to vote for, but I'm going to write each one and ask them what they're going to do about climate change. And that's going to frame how I vote. So that's one thing, is to figure out who you're going to vote for. Then once you figure out who you're going to vote for, who's the best candidate, you can help them out. You can make a donation. You can walk a precinct. You can, if it's at the national level, you can do phone banking and postcarding. And I've done all of those things. And they can each end up taking an hour or two. It's not necessarily a huge time commitment. So that's one aspect, is getting the right candidates into office. But then once they're in office, you have to hold their feet to the fire to make sure that they're going to implement policy changes that are good for the climate. And the interesting thing is that now there is an app called Climate Action Now, CAN, that you can get for your phone, an iPhone or an Android. And it, based on your zip code, it knows who your state and federal representatives are. And so then it has different letters that organizations write for them. I just am one of the new authors for CAN, which was fun. And they then you can just send off these pre-formatted written letters to your state and federal representatives all about upcoming bills and so forth for climate protection. So those are the two aspects, getting people elected and then keeping them going, focused to get policy changes recommended. And then from a local level, it's getting down to the city council and talking when there's something coming up on the agenda that is important. And to stay in touch, you could join Bike Walk Alameda for transportation. You can join COSTA to learn about things that are coming up that are more broader, you know, like zero waste implementation or the urban forest plan and so forth. So I hope that helps, Ruth.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I know that you wrote this book not for people who were already climate leaders, but for your average busy person who just wants to make a difference.
Mm-hmm.
I know that you have a story about a project that you did early on to just do a little something that made a big difference. You want to tell us about that?
Yeah, so that was my son's Little League. They were only doing garbage. They only had the gray bin. They didn't have composting and recycling bins at the Little League fields. And I thought, well, somebody ought to do something about that. And then it occurred to me that somebody could be me. And so I called up the head of Little League and said I wanted to help on implementing recycling and composting at the Little League fields. And he said, yeah, he's fine with that, but I have to convince the volunteer that's in charge of the garbage. So I called up that volunteer and explained what I wanted to do. And his first reaction was, well, I'm in this, doing this volunteer work because I wanted to do vermin control. He wanted to keep the kids safe from pests. So he said, but I don't have anything against composting and recycling, but I don't know anything about it. So if you could help me, like give me a list of what goes in which bin from the common things from the snack bar. And then if you can make me some signs for the bins so that people who come to the Little League fields know what to put in each bin. So I did those two things. I emailed him a list and then I made the signs and he ordered the bins from ACI and away we went. And it was very rewarding to see at the Little League fields, people looking at my signs and figuring out where to put their nacho tray and or the empty pizza box or whatever it was. And they sorted. And then for the occasional mistake, the garbage volunteer and his son would sort through and pull out a recyclable, water bottle from the gray bin and put it in the blue bin. They got so passionate about it, they wanted to make sure each stream was appropriately sorted. And then he got so into it that he went to the snack bar and to ask them to stop using styrofoam cups. So he went from someone that didn't know anything about sorting to stopping the waste stream at the source. So that was a very rewarding thing. And it only took me 2 phone calls, 1 email, and making some signs. So it was only a few hours work and we got it implemented with Tony's help. Tony was the garbage guy.
That's awesome. That's such a great story. Well, and I know, this is an author talk and we're talking here about your book. And I wanted to see if you could just, before we go to the Q&A, spend a little time kind of walking us through the outline of the book so that if people might be so inspired to get the book, what can they expect to read about? Can you
okay.
give us a little overview?
Okay. So I first start off by how I started reducing my own emissions, how you can reduce your own emissions. Then I go into the checklist and how ideas for distributing the checklist, writing for the local press. So I give examples of letters to the editor and articles that I've written and give tips for writing letters to the editor and as well as local as articles. And then I have an article about jump at opportunities as they present themselves. So it's to be bold and go for things. If you think that someone ought to do something about a situation, you may be that person. You should be that person and just go for it. Partnering with other organizations. There's a lot of organizations. We've mentioned a couple here in town, but then there's national organizations that have local chapters like the Elders Climate Action or Citizen Climate Lobby or 350.org. There's a lot of them, and I go through each of the ones that I think are the most valuable and how they are different from each other. How to build leadership actions into your daily life, like the Little League setting up the composting and recycling. And there's some other examples in there too. Taking political action. I give some tips about talking at city council meetings and such. Presenting on climate change, which is the thing I did after I retired. And then how to maintain your optimism as you go through this, because it can get discouraging sometimes. But my main message of the book is to be bold and take things on, and you can do it. Anyone can take this on, even if you're a busy person, a busy mom or dad or full-time job or whatever. You can still get an awful lot done just in a few hours a month.
And I think that translates to any, important issue that people want to work on. I think one of the practical aspects of this book is that the strategies and tactics that you've identified that a busy person can do to impact the climate can also be done for other causes and interests that folks have. So it's kind of a step-by-step guide about how your regular folks, your regular person can go out there and change the world. So it's super impressive. I actually got this book and you signed it for me, and I sent it to my aunt, who's becoming an active person in Houston, Texas. And she's reached out to her church and she wants to help green the church and then a congregation. But her passion is protection of animals. And so a lot of the strategies and tactics that you outline in this book can also be put to use in Houston for my aunt in making an impact in protecting of animals. So I wanted to ask you, I know you've sold some books, but I think they've kind of gone all over the country, gone all over the world. Can you tell us a little bit about where folks have been inspired to buy your book and get going on being a busy person saving the climate?
Well, a Rotarian that was visiting from Australia took one home with him. I had someone from Germany buy my book. I don't know how they found out about it. They must have found it on Amazon. And then like 4 people in the UK and 1 person from Brazil. And that's my extension to the world so far. And then various states. So, and that's very heartwarming to hear about your friend in Texas.
And do you have any, what are your plans for kind of promoting this worldwide? I mean, we're doing a great job of, talking to folks in Alameda. Do you have plans to reach out beyond Alameda, beyond California to help folks get information about the book?
Well, I am doing some work with the national organizations, climate organizations like Elders Climate Action sent out a plug for my book in their newsletter. And I've approached all the different climate organizations in the country. And some of them have included it in their newsletter, or I submitted a blog to the Sierra Club's Yodeler for the Bay Area. I have a blog for Golden Gate Audubon Society in the Bay. Golden Gate Bird Alliance. They changed their name in the Bay Area. So, and then I've been giving lots of talks to Rotary clubs in the extended Bay Area. I gave one talk in Dallas Fort Worth to a group of fellow climate reality project leaders. So that was fun. So, and I've reached out to book clubs to offer to speak to their book club about it. So I'm doing a variety of things to try to promote the book. But what I really need help on is if you do get the book and read it and like it, if you can do a review on Amazon for me, because I have to get up to like 50 reviews before some algorithm kicks in that I don't understand, to make it easier to find my book on Amazon. So if you can do a little review for me on Amazon, I'd really appreciate it.
And I know that the book is available at Amazon. It's also available at Books Inc. And of course, I bought my book at Books Inc. Can I go on Amazon and still do a review?
Yes, you can.
Awesome. All right. Well, cool. Well, I think we've kind of gone through a number of the questions that I had about the book and the history and why you went ahead and developed the book. But I think we're going to have a few questions. We're going to start the kind of Q&A. I'll start out with reading the ones that we see in the chat, and then if folks have other questions, or if you know, if they want to just add those in there, we'll kind of go through them for now. So let's see. So let's come up on the first question here. A lot of folks are interested in getting the link to the climate protection checklist and getting the link to the book. And then, so here is a question from Laria, which is, you are so inspiring. Your actions, active environmentalists, and generosity to our community is wonderful and very much appreciated. Thank you, Joyce. I don't know if that's a question, but it's an accolade. And
Thank you.
and so, I mean, but yeah, if you want to just say anything about that, that would be awesome.
Well, no, I just really appreciate the nice comment. That makes me feel good. Thank you so much. I try.
And I actually know Laria. Laria is also active in the community and supporting a lot of great environmental issues, including reusables to go. So Laria, you do a great job as well. So thank you for your work. Here is a question. How do you think Alameda stacks up against other Bay Area cities and towns in the climate response?
I think some aspects are doing very well. We have 100% renewable energy from AMP. So that's a big one because that makes our electricity usage zero emissions. So this positions us well for electrification and moving off of natural gas appliances to electric appliances and from gas cars to electric vehicles. So that's a huge thing. The fact that we've got a sustainability and resiliency manager in our city is a good one. The fact we've got a climate adaptation and resiliency plan is a good thing. So in many ways, we've been leading. I think we could do better when it comes to our urban forest. In my personal opinion, it's not as aggressive enough of a plan. That's why I've been trying to help with Rotary, but we need to plant a lot more trees because when you get to 2050, we have to be at zero. Well, we're not going to get completely to zero without a lot of trees to offset what emissions we're still emitting in 2050. So that's an area I think we could do a little better, and I hope that the city steps up in that area. And zero waste, we were one of the first ones to implement the recycling and the composting bins. So there's been a lot of good work in Alameda.
I know that you said that we have that urban forest plan that's kind of under development. We've
Yes.
some review. You've participated in that. Some of the other plans that are being implemented the city, and I think you've had some involvement in, includes our active transportation plan to get people out of our single-use cars and to feel safe enough to use the bike with these protected bike areas. I know that a lot of those projects are kind of, they're slow to develop, but they are being implemented. So that is the big thing. Are you finding that people are responding to that and
yes,
those bike lanes and getting out of their cars?
Yes, there are many more bicyclists now in Alameda than there were 20 years ago. So that's been a big improvement. And we've gotten a much better infrastructure of bike lanes in town, and some of them that are about to be implemented. So that's a really good thing. And yes, yes.
Great. Well, I have another question for you, which is, have you ever calculated the benefit of your work in terms of reducing greenhouse gases or some other metric?
No, I have not. The only thing I noticed was the reduction in gasoline consumption when I first started with the bicycling and doing riding more efficiently. And then also the benefit to my electric bill before I got solar panels from implementing changes. My electric and gas bills went down, I think about 35%. So, but I haven't even begun to try to guess at how much the work that I've done. I'm hoping that it had a little part to do with the reduction of natural gas usage in town, which has gone down. Residential natural gas usage has gone down. And I'm hoping that my checklist with lots of ideas of how to conserve natural gas in your home had something to do with that.
That's really great. Yeah. And kind of a follow-up question here is that, does Alameda Municipal Power have the capacity to support the community in eliminating the use of natural gas and also the addition of electric cars?
As far as I know, they do. So this is a good thing, but it's also the reason why you should put solar panels on if you can afford it and you're in a position to do so. Not everyone's in a position to do so, but if you own your own home and can do solar panels, that would be a really cool thing. And then I saw in Europe that even people who don't own homes would have apartments with balconies had solar panels that they could get. So I'm hoping that that's going to take off in the US as well.
Yeah, I think CASA pays quite a bit of attention to the Public Utilities Board. We're quite different in Alameda from our surrounding cities in that we have a locally owned municipal utility. There are a handful, across the state, and we're one of them. We're one of the oldest municipal utilities. And because of that, we really do have local control of what is purchased and what is owned by the municipal utility. And they are quite bullish on being able to provide enough capacity for everyone to get an electric car, everyone to convert their natural gas. Probably we don't all want to do it tomorrow, but they do have access to a lot of resources through the regional agencies that they're a part of in order to provide us with that clean power. A lot of our clean power is from large hydroelectric plants. That's kind of a baseline load for us, and also from geothermal power plants up there in in the kind of Sonoma up there area. So I mean, we have a great base load for clean power, and then that's obviously supplemented with some of the other things like solar and wind. But as Joyce was saying, if you have solar on your roof, you're basically taking yourself away from the power grid for most of the day when the sun is shining. And so that does help a little. The only problem with us in Alameda is that we are a winter peaking utility. So where we really need the power is in the winter when we all come home, turn on our stoves and start making stuff. That's when we need all the power. But future technology, battery storage and everything, I think Alameda will be ready. So that's extremely exciting. So great. And then, Joyce, but what about, can you tell us a little bit about our pilot experience with the cool blocks? Last year, I think we experimented a little bit with cool blocks, and they did have a calculator. Did you ever fill in that calculator for your own impact?
No, I did not. But the Cool Blocks was a neat program. It's too bad it didn't expand, but it was taking a block at a time with a leader, and then gathering your neighbors in your backyard or in your home, and then discussing things together about items like how to reduce your carbon footprint. So it was a good experience, and I got to know my neighbors better, and we did some constructive things, but I never did get a good count of how much people reduced their carbon footprints, but it did some good.
Oh, absolutely. And I guess the other thing about this work is that you don't have to be 100%. You know, it's not like we're expecting everybody to go to absolute zero waste. We all just need to do our part, right? We're not expecting everybody to give up their gasoline-powered car. You know, you know, we're talking about doing a little bit better, a little bit better, a little bit better. And not necessarily feeling like you don't have to have the weight of the world on top of you if you're not perfect. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So I once I got my electric dryer, I stopped using the clothesline. I'll admit that. So it's a matter of balance. And I just like on the checklist, you just take things one at a time and go through and change, either complete a project at home or change a habit. And then you move on to the next one. And then you move on to the next one. And then before you know it, you're living a very green life, a really good for the climate life. And you can get through it, I'd say in a year of concerted efforts, you can get through it and become really quite, have a quite low carbon footprint.
That's great. So I had a similar experience. We used to have a backyard compost bin.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as we had food scraps collected in our green bin in Alameda, 2001, we stopped using that backyard compost. So yeah, it's all about, you know, doing what you can. And then, as you pointed out, with regards to policy change, just making it easier for everyone, right? So
Right.
it's not really our responsibility to do everything ourselves, but we really need the system change. We need the systems in place in order to make sure that it's easy for everyone to make those changes.
Mm-hmm.
We have a comment here in a chat about I appreciated the local bus system. It was easy to catch the bus from Oakland to Alameda. And I myself also had an easy commute to San Francisco over the years, either taking the bus to downtown Oakland and taking the BART downtown, or taking our amazing ferry system.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of opportunities in Alameda to take advantage of some pretty convenient options.
Yes, indeed.
Have you had the chance to use the water shuttle yet from to
No, I
Jackson Square?
I haven't experienced that yet. I look forward to doing that at some point. Look,
Yeah.
you've got a new one.
Yeah, okay, here's another one. Question from Laria. Did you happen to change out your HVAC system, that's heating, ventilation, air conditioning system, to electric if it was previously gas? We really want to replace our original furnace, but the cost is really exorbitant. Local rebates are pretty small, and I understand there are federal rebates. Do you have any experience with any of these, Joyce?
Well, we looked seriously at getting a heat pump to replace our gas furnace. We had 3 different people come out, and they all told us the same thing, that our heating ducts that are built into the ceilings of our in our house are too small for a heat pump. So we couldn't replace the gas furnace unless we ripped out all the ceilings in the house. So we weren't going to do that. So I haven't had good luck with the heat pump, but other people have. But you're right, it is pricier. The only good thing is that they are less expensive to run. So in the long run, you'll benefit, but they are pretty pricey.
Right. So it's obviously best to do when you are doing a major remodel or you're wanting to replace your furnace anyway.
Mhm.
So I think that's really what the city wants to encourage people to do, and to plan for it in case, for example, your water heater goes out. The most natural thing to do if you have a gas water heater and it goes out is to just immediately replace it with a gas water heater. But if you know that your gas water heater might be, 10 years old or older, you might want to prepare for the end of its useful life and maybe replace it before it absolutely calls it quits. And in order to do that, you may need to do things like check and see if you have sufficient voltage, etc., making sure it's in a place that can accommodate an electric water heater or a heat pump. But I think that in the Bay Area here, we do have a lot of resources locally to assist us with reducing the and preparing for the change out. I
Mhm.
think right now we're a little bit on the leading edge of a lot of these technologies, and over time they're going to get more and more routine and easier to use. The city has been working with our local contractors to get them prepared for electrification. So I guess the answer is, kind of wait and watch and see, and keep tabs. And I just wanted to offer a couple of quick things, and you might also have some suggestions as well, Joyce, is that, for example, with stoves, a lot of us have, a gas stove, a gas range, and it might not be the right time to replace it, but a lot of the things that we do every day could be accommodated, like a little electric kettle, or a cooktop, a little electric cooktop, to just, do a couple of small things. So I've known renters, for example, who have gotten those cooktops, those induction stove cooktops
Mhm.
that are really fast and really good. And they just put those right on top of their gas stoves, and use them, for small things that it's not roasting a whole turkey, but they're just a
Mhm.
regular dinner. Do you have other quick fixes like that in
And then just making use of your toaster oven and the microwave and a crock pot and an Instapot. All those are electric devices instead of gas stove devices. And then we do plan on replacing our gas stove with an induction stove once the gas stove goes. Yes. Oh, air fryer, someone recommended. Yes, an air fryer. And someone else also pointed out with the heat pump, you get cooling too. So that's a plus with that, with the heat pump.
Yeah, as the Alameda has been blessed with very temperate weather, but as the heat rises and our summers get a little hotter, we are really going to want to turn to air conditioning. I know here
Mhm.
I'm using a fan right now, but so that's always an opportunity. So great. Well, let's see. Are there other questions for Joyce about Joyce's journey, about the things, activism, other ideas for that you all have, the little changes that you've made to reduce your carbon footprint and save the planet?
I think that may be the end of the questions, Ruth.
All right. Well, Joyce, tell us a little bit. Are you achieving all you want to do with this book, or do you have another book in the works?
No, this is the only book in me. This is the only book in me.
And I think if everybody takes it to heart, it will really truly do what you hope that it would have accomplished, is to give people the practical steps that they can do in their own backyard, even though they're busy, to make a change both in their own lives and in their community. So
Yes,
thank you so much.
well, thank you for the opportunity. I really appreciate the Friends of the Alameda Free Library to giving me this opportunity to speak with all of you tonight. And I appreciate everybody coming and listening and asking the good questions and making the good comments. So thank you very much. And I guess with that, we'll hand it back to Serena.
Yes, Serena, we'll turn it back to you.
Great. Thank you so much, Joyce and Ruth, for a memorable discussion this evening. We have added links in the chat so you can purchase Joyce's book, Save the Planet in Your Spare Time. Our next event is an art docent talk on October 9th called Leonardo da Vinci and the Power of Observation, where we will discover the fascinating connection between science and art through one of da Vinci's most compelling portraits, The Lady with an Ermine, led by a docent at the Phoenix Art Museum. Please consider a donation to the Friends of the Alameda Free Library, either through the link in our chat or on our website at alamedafriends.com. Watch our website, newsletter, and Facebook page for future events. Many thanks to Karen Manuel, Beth Curarte, and Marsha Holm, who make these events possible. Finally, many thanks to you at home for attending tonight. We'll see you next time. Good night.